Welcome to section 3.3 part 2, which is going to look at writing equations in slope-intercept form given a variety of information. So to begin with, let's see how we would do this if we were given a point, not necessarily the y-intercept, although it could be, and a slope. So, for example, I give you a slope and a point. How could you use that information to write the equation in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b? So here are our steps. Step 1, you're going to plug in the slope for m in y equals mx plus b. So since you're given the slope, that's one piece of information that you need to know. The other piece of information that you need to know is the b. And so that's a little bit more work to find. So then what you're going to do is you're going to use the point that you're given, right, and plug in the point for x and y. So this point that you're given, x and y, x comes first. Whatever number that you're given for x, you're going to plug in right there. And whatever number you're given for y, you're going to plug in right there. And then all that should be left for variables is b, because this is the one that we don't know, and so we're going to solve for b. So that's step 2 and 3, and step 4, we finally write the equation in slope-intercept form using m and b. So let's give it a try. So write the equation in slope-intercept form of the line that goes through the given point and the given slope. So to begin with, I'm going to write y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to plug in the slope of a -2 for m. So I get y equals -2 times x plus b. Again, I don't know what b is. B is not the 4 or the 1. The 4 and the 1 is just some point on the line. So the 4 is the x, and so I'm going to plug it in here, or I should say here. And my y, the 1, is going to be plugged in here. So let's give it a try. So y was 1, -2 is the slope, x was 4, and then b is the thing I still don't know, so I'm going to solve for it. It becomes a simple little equation. I'm going to start by multiplying these numbers to get -8. So I have 1 equals -8 plus b. I then have to isolate b, undo what's happening to b. Well, I have a -8, so I'm going to add 8. So this cancels, and I get that 9 is b. So the answer, once I found what b is, I'm going to plug in the b right here. And I already know what the m is, so I'm going to keep that as a -2. Notice the x and the y are still there, but now I'm just putting the m and the b, and this is the answer. All right. Why don't you guys go ahead and pause the video and try the second one, B, where we have a slope of 3/4 and a point of -8, 5. So go ahead and give it a try. Okay, check your work so far. So we had a slope of 3/4, so I plugged in for the slope for m 3/4, which was right here. And then for the second step, I plugged in the x and the y from the point that I was given. So -8 was the x, so that goes there, and the 5 was the y, which goes there. So now I have this equation, and I need to solve for b. So most students get a little scared by this one because it's got fractions. Take the -8, put it over 1, and I would check to see if we can cross cancel. Does 4 and 8 have something in common? Yes, they do. 4. 4 goes into 4 once, 4 goes into -8 -2 times, and then you just multiply across. So 3 times -2 will give me -6, and then 1 times 1 is just 1. So I have 5 equals negative 6 plus b, and then let's add 6 to both sides, and we get that b is equal to 11. So final answer, y equals 3/4 x plus 11. All right, let's go ahead and try one more. This one is going to be a little bit more challenging because of fractions, but at least get it started. So give it a try. So let's talk about this one. So we plug in our slope, we plug in our x, we plug in our y, and again we have a fraction, and again we should check to see if anything cross cancels. In this case 3 and 4 do not cross cancel, so we just have to multiply across. So negative 5 times negative 4 will give you positive 20 over 3 times 1, which is 3. So now I'm going to give you a little strategy to make this a little easier on yourself. I'm going to multiply both sides of this equation by 3. The reason I'm doing that is because if I multiply 20/3 by 3, the 3 will cancel out. So I'm specifically using this denominator to help me get rid of itself by multiplying it. So 3 times negative 2 would be negative 6. And then over here we're going to have, think of this like a distribution problem. So maybe I should write it like this. It's really 20/3 times 3 plus b times 3. So both things are being multiplied by 3. So then over here this 3 and 3 will cancel, so all I have left on that side of the equal sign is 20 plus, and then 3 times b, which is 3b. So that makes the fraction go away, which makes it a little easier to work with. So then I'm going to subtract 20. It's just solving an equation. So that's negative 26 equals 3b. Divide both sides by 3. And yes, that's not going to go into 26, but that's okay. It's still an answer. b is negative 26/3. And we can leave it as an improper fraction. So the overall answer is y equals m, which is the slope, x plus b, or in this case it's negative, so we can make it subtracting. And we're done. So this is how you would do it if you're given 1 point and a slope. So now we're going to look at a case where you're given 2 points and no slope. So you could see from the example down here, we again want to write an equation in slope-intercept form, and this time we're given 2 points. So we're not given a slope. So your first thing that you should do is actually use the slope formula with your 2 points. So to remind you what that is, that's m equals y2 minus y1 for x2 minus x1. So we can call this point x1, y1, and x2, y2, or it really doesn't matter if you do it the other way. Then you're going to plug in the slope for m. Okay, so let's find the slope first. So remember with this formula, the y's go on top, the x's go on bottom. So my y's are 1 and negative 3. So I'm going to do negative 3 minus 1. So that's this negative 3 minus 1. And then the x2 would be negative 3 minus 5. So that's negative 3 minus 5. So that gives me on the top negative 4, and on the bottom my negatives are going to cancel, and I'm going to get 2. I'm going to get negative 3 plus 5, which is 2. So my slope is negative 2. So that's m. Okay, so the rest of this is going to feel pretty much the same as the previous problems because now you have your slope and you have 2 points, which is fine. You just have more information than you even need right now. So I'm going to plug in the slope. And just like before, we're going to plug in x and y. So in this case, I could use either one of these 2 points. Your choice. I'm going to use the first one. So my x is -5. I'm going to plug it there. And my y is 1. So I'm going to put it over here. And just like before, I'm going to find b this way. So 1 equals -2 times -5 plus our unknown b. -2 times -5 is 10. 10 plus b is equal to 1. Subtract 10 from both sides. I get that b is equal to -9. So my answer is y equals, and then plug in m times x plus b. All right, why don't you pause and give the problem B a try? All right, let's check your work so far. We have the slope should be 3/2. If you got the same slope but you did it differently, that's okay. If you did 3 minus 0 on top and 4 minus 2, in other words, you did switch the points, you should get the exact same answer. So then I chose to pick the first point for 3. You could choose the second point to 0. You could use either point when you move on to the next step where you plug in the x and the y here. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel, cross cancel. 2 goes into 4 twice. So that gives me 3 is equal to 6 plus b. Subtract 6. And I get that b is equal to -3. So plugging in the m and the b, here is my answer. Alright, one more. This one, let's just go ahead and let's do the slope. We can do -5 minus -7 and 6 minus 9, although you could do it the other way around. So then the negative negative here will become a positive, so this is -5 plus 7, or 2. 6 minus 9, which is -3. So here's m. Why don't you go ahead and pause it at this point and see if you can do the rest on your own. Okay, let's check your work. Now you could have gotten the same answer using the point 6, -5. Alright, but I used 9, -7. So I plugged in 9 for x, so right here, and then I plugged in -7 for y. I'd already plugged in my slope of -2/3. This case it does cross cancel, so 3 goes into 9 3 times, so -2 times 3 will give you -6. And then we get -7 is equal to -6 plus b, so then you add 6 to both sides and you get that b is -1. So here's our answer when we plug in m and b. Alright, great job.